This presentation is meant to dispel the myths surrounding year-round schooling and discuss why year-round schooling is a better model of education for student learning. I chose this topic as a current issue because it is something I think could benefit students in general. I personally find the chaos of back to school in September extremely disruptful. The gradual entry in September, coupled with the confusion on who is my child's classroom teacher, has me questioning if there is a better way to educate our children. With the September chaos also comes the June burnout. I know teacher burnout occurs, but parent burnout occurs too. There is a mad rush to get to the finish line we call June, with field trips and treats and more outdoor activities and assemblies that occur during this month. The abrupt shift from learning to fun occurs every June, and keeping up with the myriad of activities and changes is exhausting for everyone. I also have a child with a moderate intellectual disability. I'm fortunate to have a summer program in my community that she can go to, but this program is different than school. It focuses on fun and life skills, not on the academic achievements she works so hard for during the school year. Summer is a time then when I become as much of a teacher as I can, even with a full-time job, in trying to keep her learning from slipping away until that Tuesday after Labor Day arrives and I can send her back to school. Finally, I run the summer program as a volunteer that my daughter attends. The amount of work and resources that go into this program are quite time-consuming. And while we provide a quality life skills-based program for our participants, I always wonder if we are providing the right type of program, since we teach no academics, or if a year-round schooling model would provide a more consistent experience for our participants. In this next section, I will dispel some of the myths surrounding year-round schooling. The first myth that I'll talk about that came up often in the research was that if year-round schooling were adopted, there would be no breaks like spring break or winter break, and that children would be in school 12 months a year. Year-round schooling can take many different forms. It is not simply a model in which summer is eliminated. For example, there is the 45-15 model, which has 45 days of instruction followed by 15 days of vacation, or a 60-20 model with 60 days of instruction followed by 20 days of vacation. These examples can be single track, meaning there is a common school and break period within the single school, or multi-track, meaning some students and teachers are on vacation while others are in class. These are just a couple examples of many different ways year-round schooling can be implemented. The next issue that came up often in the research was that children will finish school at an earlier age because they are constantly in school. Year-round schooling does not mean that children will finish school or each grade level earlier. It's still 180 days of instruction and is meant to provide more consistency of routine, so students spend more time learning new material and less time reviewing the prior year's material. Of the 180 days spent in school, they will be spread out over the entire 12-month period rather than just 10 months. Some people also thought that in a year-round schooling model, teachers will end up being paid less and working more. Under a year-round schooling model, teachers would work the same number of days and receive the same number of days off. These days are just interspersed throughout the entire year, rather than lumped together over a longer period of time in the summer. This model offers teachers a bit more flexibility as well. If they'd like to work as a substitute during a break period, they have the ability to do so. If they'd like to substitute for part of the break and have the other portion of the break as time off, they can do that as well. The final myth is that parents worry that their children will have less time to play under a year-round schooling model. Under a year-round schooling model, students still receive recess and lunch every day, and their school runs for the same length of time, giving them the same amount of time for play after school. Under this model, students receive the same number of days off. As with teachers, they are just interspersed through the entire year rather than lumped together over a long period of time during the summer. Next, we'll talk about the additional benefits to provide support for a year-round schooling model. With year-round schooling, students will need to spend less time having remedial learning because they're not having so much time away from school for such a long period of time. If there is less remedial learning, teachers have more time to explore new topics in more detail. Have you ever had a tragedy occur in your community during the summer? For many children, the best place to receive emotional support is within a school. Under our current model, the school shuts down, and if a tragedy occurs, access to counselors or other support services need to be accessed outside of the school system. Under a year-round multi-track model, there is always support in the school, so the school really becomes the hub of the community. Finally, if a student is struggling in a subject, there are shorter breaks in which support can be given to the student to help get them back on track. Under the current model, there are no breaks that allow this to happen, and students' only option is either summer school or to repeat a grade or the course. Under a year-round model, students could attend remedial sessions so that the learning can be reinforced and practiced before going back to school after the break. This extra support can eliminate the need for repeating a grade because the problems can be rectified earlier than under the traditional model. In looking at who year-round schooling benefits, the answer is pretty much everyone. Students who learn at a slower rate are probably the biggest benefiters. Remedial learning, or the learning that occurs when school returns in September, can last up to 6 weeks. This time is really beneficial to students who learn slower, as they may not have fully grasped the concepts at the end of the prior year. Add in summer slippage, which naturally occurs, and the benefits of more frequent, shorter breaks will allow these slower learners to better retain concepts by allowing them more practice and teaching time. Parents also benefit by having shorter time periods in which to occupy their children with activities. Governments benefit by potential cost savings associated with the higher utilization rate of schools which have already been built. Teachers benefit by receiving more frequent breaks, allowing them time to recharge. The potential for burnout is reduced because of this. Both teachers and students are reported to take fewer sick days when there are more frequent breaks from school as well. Communities, especially those that have low socioeconomic status, benefit as students who typically tend to get in trouble with the law because they don't have anything to do are spending shorter amount of time away from school. Police spend less time responding to petty incidents when year-round schooling is implemented. When multi-track year-round schooling is implemented, the community also benefits as students are available at different times of the year for employment. Under the traditional model, everyone leaves in June, and those who want a job only want it in July and August. There are more opportunities under this model for more stable employment. Year-round schooling is not the answer to all of our problems. There are some students who do not benefit from year-round schooling. High-achieving students or highly motivated students generally do not benefit from this concept. This is because they seek out learning opportunities regardless of whether they're in school or not. Students from wealthier families tend not to benefit as much. This is because those families can afford to put their children in summer programs, which enrich their learning over the summer. While these students may not seek out learning, they are provided with learning activities to keep them from losing too much material over the summer. If a school district introduces a multi-track system, some families may feel the system doesn't benefit them if the multi-track system doesn't meet their needs. With every family having unique circumstances, some families may feel disadvantaged if their children are on different tracks, while others may wish they had each child on a different track, but the district does not meet this need. However, with that being said, year-round schooling would provide an unintended benefit to these students, in that there would be less remedial time spent. With remedial time reduced, high-achieving students become more engaged because they're not repeating old material. So, does year-round schooling improve the quality of education? There really isn't a correct answer. School districts need to carefully consider the benefits and drawbacks for their districts on an individual basis. What may work well for one district would not work for the next district over, which could be due to differences in socioeconomic status, teacher population, politicians, or parents. There is also no conclusive evidence that learning outcomes for students are better under the year-round schooling model. Evidence exists that there is some benefit at certain learning times. So I argue that if a benefit exists at certain times, would it be better to attempt a shift given the partial evidence? Contrary to this, evidence exists that student brains slow down over the summer. So would the benefit of going to school at this unpeak learning time, which again is unconclusive, not be as beneficial as we hope? I finish with this quote from Charles Ballinger, the same person who wrote the article that you read. I challenge you to answer his question as part of the 2 questions that I posed to you as part of this assignment. February 17, 1998, Charles Ballinger gave a speech to the National Association for Year-Round Education and was quoted as saying, "If year-round education were the traditional school calendar and had been so for 100 years or more, and if someone came along to suggest a new calendar wherein school students were to be educated for only 9 months each year, with another 3 months free from organized instruction, would the American public allow or even consider such a scheme?"